Good day, friends. Uh, it's good that we meet again. Um, Today, we are going to discuss the new scramble for Africa and the geopolitical change that's happening around the world in relation to France, Russia, and America. Before we start, please subscribe, like, and share, and also engage on the comments, and I'll be happy to reply. Let's get straight away. Uh, During the between the month of July to August, we've witnessed something unprecedented in terms of a new assault on you know on the scramble for Africa. Uh, Macron, Blinken, and Lavrov all visited Africa, within a very short time span, and Macron was the first president to visit, and when he was visiting Africa, Lavrov was also here, and Blinken, who's the Secretary of State to the United States, also visited. This shows you that Africa once again is at the sphere of interest in this foreign power and this so-called new multipolar world, where you find that Africa again is uh, is being torn apart by all these different powers and being put in a position where it is required to pick sides. Why am I saying this? The new scramble for Africa. Macron visited Africa. This was his first out of Europe trip. His first outside of Europe trip after his election was in Africa. He visited Cameroon, Guinea-Bissau, and Benin. And I'll start with Macron's visit. France has always been, a former colonial power of most countries in West Africa, Burkina Faso, the Chad, the Algerias, and France has always had this foothold in this region. But of late, due to the rise of insurgents, militia, the French government has been seen to be not such a reliable partner when it comes to these issues. And we must not forget, even the most instabilities in West Africa, France is blamed for. Remember the death of Thomas Sankara, who the Burkina Faso citizen accused uh, uh, France uh, had colluded with the military junta in Burkina Faso to overthrow Thomas Sankara. So French President Macron really made you know, um, his first priority to visit Africa. And when he came to Africa, before he came, he started showing, uh, acts of faith into his commitment with the African relationship. We must remember that after the coups that have happened in Burkina Faso, Chad, and Mali, especially the Malian government immediately withdrew the presence of French army in uh, Mali, and the junta that took over the power in Mali welcomed the Russian government, and now they are working with the Russian government in terms of the Russian government under the Wagner Group, which is a military company that has been sanctioned by the European Union, which is termed as an illegal military company that which is said to be operating under the guise of the Russian government. The Russian government is now providing hardware to Mali, military hardware, assistance, aid in food, and this has become a big blow to France, which was a former colonial master and which thought that it had a foothold in Mali. So Macron's visit was seen as very strategic. He first decided to return the Benin bronze artifacts that were stolen during the raid of the empire during the French colonial period, and he returned them to Benin. He also decided to declassify information on the assassination of Sankara. And he committed himself that France will work with all partners and promised a new strategic and beneficial relationship, a new, very new kind of relationship where the relationship won't be master servant, but will be a relationship of among equals. France decided to support. Benin has been having issues of insurgents and militia, because of the Sahel region. We know there's a lot of terrorism, so it decided to offer its support to Benin and also work together in terms of democracy and human rights. He also promised to work in terms of food sustainability. This he also promised in Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau is also facing issues of insurgents and militia. And we must remember that Guinea-Bissau is a Portuguese colony, and Cameroon was is a bit divided. German, French, and British. Benin is a former French colony. So it shows that Macron is not only targeting French colonies, his aim is also to bring new partners into this alliance, which are not French colonies. When he last visited, you can remember that during his first term, he visited Nigeria and South Africa. These two were not French colonies, but it shows that Macron is taking a very different approach from other predecessors of the French government and is trying to woo even the other countries to join this so-called alliance in terms of working with France, in terms of partnership. Um, his visit to Cameroon, he was welcomed by President Biya. President Biya is one of the oldest, if not the oldest serving presidents in the world. When President Biya took over, uh, just to give you how old he is and how long has he stayed in power. When President Biya took over Cameroon, President Macron was 5 years. So President Biya is seen as a dictator, an authoritarian who has ruled France with an iron fist. And it's surprising that during the visit of President Macron through this area, Cameroon, he didn't seem to condemn, the human rights issues and also call upon President Biya to reduce in his army attack on separatists in the Anglophone areas. As you know, Cameroon division is based on language, where one section was colonized by the British and they speak English, the other by the French. So there has been this tussle between the people who speak French and Britain, and the people who speak the no, not Britain, English. The people who speak English feel they have been marginalized by the people who speak French. So there's been this separatist movement to form, to succeed its own country. And President Biya has come hard on this movement, and he's been trying to marshal up his military and other military assets just to suppress the movement. President Macron is President Macron was critics have condemned him for not putting Biya into task and through his fight against freedom and question opposition. President Macron didn't even take time to meet the opposition leader. That shows you probably even Macron visit has a bigger interest. Probably the interest where France, it shows you where France is at a corner because it has decided to give some of its demands on human rights and respect, rule of law, so that it can keep these allies. It seems that there's a big backlash of the French government in West Africa. So probably Macron didn't want to raise these issues because he feared that he might lose these countries which have strategic assets. And we must also look that also there's a fear that there's heavy competition from Russia and China, which are willing to work with all partners regardless of what they are doing. So Macron is also probably forced to bend some of his moral code so that he can keep people like Biya, Guinea-Bissau, Benin, and the rest. So at this point, when Macron was in Africa, Lavrov was also, and that's why I'm saying it's a new scramble. Yeah. The Russians have also decided to go full assault on their diplomatic mission in Africa. Lavrov was visiting Egypt, DRC Congo, Ethiopia, and Uganda. Lavrov is a very, very well and endowed and distinguished diplomat. He's one of the longest serving foreign ministers in the world. He has a lot of experience, and at the time when Russia has seems to have no allies and looking for new partners, Africa was the best target for it. Never since the Cold War have we seen Russia decide to make such a strategic impact. But we must also remember that Russia started seeing Africa uh, uh, as a strategic continent a long time ago, but it started making gains and showing initiative, especially during the 2019 Russia African Summit, where all heads of state of Africa were invited to Russia to see the Russian military hardware, how the Russians can offer us other solutions apart from Western solutions in terms of hunger, technology, and sustainability. The Russians are trying to offer an alternative from Western solution. Uh, Africa accounts for 18% of all arms in that Russia exports. So it shows why Lavrov was really interested to come in Africa, not to lose this market. It's a good market for Russia, and it's growing. Nearly most countries in Africa uh, uh, engage in Russian military, either through equipment or through intelligence, through the purchase of arms. Uh, Lavrov visit to Egypt was uh, was culminated by a few deals that they were signing. You must remember that Egypt is the largest importer of Russian wheat, Russian and Ukraine wheat. So that was also on the table to talk about, because we understand about the blockade, how the Ukraine war has the Russia and Ukraine war has made the price of food to go up. The Egypt government was very concerned about wheat, and probably the Russian foreign minister went there to make assurances and tell them everything is okay. Uh, Also, Russia has a lot of projects in Egypt. They've signed a deal to worth $25 billion to build a new nuclear power plant, and also a $7 billion to build an industrial park. Uh, Trade between Russia and trade between Russia and Egypt of last year was about $5 billion, and it's growing. Egypt is also considering to buy fifth generation fighter jets from Russia, since they wanted to buy the F-35, but the Americans were not willing to sell them, so they switched to the Russians. Although, you know, the cloud of sanction hanging over them, when you buy Russian equipment, you might face sanction. The Trump administration you know, had had shown that it might sanction, but with the Biden, I don't know how it goes, but I feel like the deal is still under talk. We must remember that Egypt and Russia have had relationship for a very long time, since Russia was since the Soviet era. The Soviets were the one who built the Aswan High Dam, which is one of the biggest dam in Africa. The Soviet, so their relationship has always been there. Uh, After that, Lavrov was in DRC. DRC is a very strategic asset. The Wagner Group is also said to be there, operating there, dealing with militia, helping stabilize the country. The Wagner Group is associated to the Kremlin. The Congo also is a big purchaser of Russian arms and of Russian arms and equipment. Also, uh, the Kremlin sees the oil and minerals from the Congo as a very strategic asset, and that's why I'm saying there's a new scramble for Africa, because now it's Africa is now seen as as the golden goose. Everybody wants it. After that, Lavrov was in Uganda to meet with Kaguta Yoweri Museveni, the longest serving president of Uganda. They discussed mostly arms and agriculture, and especially in terms of helping improve the food sector, health, and military. We must remember that Uganda is one of the largest purchasers of arms in Africa, and most of them come from Russia. In fact, Uganda is competing with a country like Kenya in even purchasing arms, because we can remember that last year Uganda almost spent $1 billion on military hardware. So it shows that Uganda is a very good potential customer. And it was no lie that Museveni and Lavrov enjoyed each other company. Museveni even thanked Lavrov. And this is the first high-level meeting since of a Russian diplomat to Uganda since diplomatic ties were established in 1963. So there was such a good mood, even Museveni saying that uh, they will not fight the enemies of other people, enemies, insinuating they won't fight Russia because the West has issues with Russia. He even went on to say that some countries colonized us and we forgive them. Why can't we forgive? Why can't we work with countries that didn't colonize us? So he was trying to show if the West colonized Uganda and Africa and they were forgiven and we work with them, why is it an issue working with someone you have now issue with? He also went even further to say that Russia has been supporting the liberation movement of Africa for 100 years. So Museveni had really good things to say about Russia and Lavrov. And it was all merry and everything. After that, he went to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a very, very good strategic ally of Russia. We can remember during the Soviet era, uh, even the time that Italy wanted to colonize Ethiopia, Ethiopia relied on arms from the Soviet and to push back the Italians. We can remember that even before years back of like 200 years before, Russian botanist or a famous Russian botanist who was going around the world studying seeds. He went to Ethiopia and fell in love with Ethiopia and stayed there for a while. So Russia and Ethiopia has always been having good friends. As I speak now, you must remember that the Tigray war is going on in Ethiopia, where there's a civil war where the Tigrans and the government-led Oromo are fighting each other. And the Tigray seem to be supported by the West, which has not gone very well with the government of the day. And the government of the day is under pressure. So it needs to look for other allies that can help it. And I think that this is where Russia comes in, because it's supplying arms, intelligence, and the West has really condemned the government for how it's handling the Tigray region. And I feel that Abiy Ahmed is not interested in working or working with the West. So he's looking for other partners uh, to work with them. The reason why I haven't featured China in this, China is always a play in Africa, is because uh, I wanted to focus on the fact that we had these high level diplomats in Africa, which were from France, Russia, and America. And after Ethiopia, sorry, Lavrov stayed there. He went to the African Union, met a permanent representative of members in the African Union and engaged them, and jetted back. I'd say Lavrov trip was successful. I wouldn't rate Macron trip successful, because the Macron trip is more of there's a big shift against the dependence on French power in Africa. So he was trying to save face, and probably things didn't go how he wanted. The other person who really made, we had Lavrov was here and he said, the Americans said they need to send their person, because there's fear that African countries are shifting away from the West. We need to remember that 25 African countries abstained or not, or didn't vote, abstained or voted against the Russian sanction. That's a very big number in a big bloc. So the West really fears, and for most part of the years, the West thought they understood the African continent. They had the continent on their pocket, but they have come to the realization that things are changing since they are heavily competing with Russia and China also. And uh, because of the anti-colonial history, the African countries want to work with Russia and China. And that's why Blinken came. His trip was in South Africa. He went to South Africa, DRC Congo, and Rwanda. And Blinken trip was different. He laid out a strategic foreign policy approach to Africa, and he kept insisting that they will not dictate to Africa how they should do their things. And I don't know how true is it, because we all know how the US government operate. They will not dictate. He kept insisting that. He kept insisting they will form a mutual friend, a mutual basis kind of friendship, to help each other, to work together. And his first trip was South Africa. South Africa is a very, very strategic ally of America. It's a member. It's of the SADC. The SADC, it's an organization in the Southern Africa. It's a community that promotes of countries in the Southern Africa that promotes commerce, mostly commerce, and also encourage and also and commerce. I don't want to say political, because SADC hasn't reached in that part. It's a political umbrella. It's more of a commerce umbrella working together. And South Africa is also a member of the BRICS. We must remember that BRICS was formed to challenge the G7. BRICS says it's a union of emerging countries. So it was put on by China and Russia to challenge the G7. And you must remember BRICS came when Russia started becoming active, when Russia was thrown out of the G7. So South Africa is a very strategic country. 25% of all trade from Africa, 25% of it comes from South Africa. All trade from Africa with the US. Or South Africa has 50% or more $1 billion companies in Africa. So it's a very strategic. 600 American companies are open in South Africa. Those are the most, from car manufacturing, hotels and other. So Blinken had to make this trip because foreign direct investment in South Africa from Americans is very high. So this trip was strategic. He went there to talk about how the relationship will be equal, and he also a bit criticized. He was wondering why the South Africans abstained in the United Nations resolution. They didn't condemn Russia, but the reason is because when the apartheid movement was there, the Soviet Union was a key player in helping the ANC, the African National Congress, the party of Mandela, to fight against the apartheid. So South Africa didn't want to criticize Russia, because they've been having this relationship for a very long time. So South Africa doesn't want to criticize Russia, but Blinken aim was to try and win them, and show them that working with America is much better than Russia. After that, Blinken flew to DRC Congo. DRC Congo is another strategic, because most American companies, depend on the minerals in DRC, cobalt, coltan, especially in a world where you're moving to clean energy. And in clean energy, especially the technology company like the Tesla. So Blinken wanted to know, you know, to know and to acquire, a strategic partner when it comes to these strategic assets that the Congo have. Congo is also the fourth largest supplier of copper, so it shows you Congo is a country rich with minerals which are very beneficial to this superpower, especially if cobalt and coltan. These metals are very useful in you know in making chips and other materials that are necessity in the technological world. We must remember that Congo is heavily been in civil war. The M23 rebel is very active. So Blinken also went there to show support for to quash these rebels and try to help the government regain control of the Congo. Although people are saying that the Americans are a bit late on the Congo area because the Chinese seem to own, Chinese companies from Beijing seem to own and control most of the mines. You must remember that we are here is the superpower competition. Whatever America wants, also China wants, and you find that China, it also has its own tech industry, which is a very big tech industry in the world, and it also wants to, uh, you know, to surpass America in technological advancement. You must remember that China has a vision for 2045, it will be the most technologically advanced country in the world, and they have to keep up with that ambition. So China has made inroads in Congo. Um, Analysts say America might be even late in controlling strategic assets uh, in Congo. Uh, After that, he traveled to Rwanda. Rwanda is another strategic country because there are talks that the Rwandan government is funding the M23 rebels, which are destabilizing the region. So, since the Americans sees Congo as a strategic asset, they wouldn't want it to be destabilized by another country. So he went to make it clear to the Rwandan government and all stakeholders involved that funding of the M23 rebels should cease. Also, we went to talk about the issue of human rights. Rwanda has been accused of human rights, of lack of freedom. Even the US Senate uh, um, wrote a letter. One of the senators wrote a letter uh, to the government of Rwanda because they had captured and arrested Rwandese who went to live in America and became an American citizen, but the Rwandan government considers him a dissident and he's been charged with terrorist activities. So Blinken went there to talk to Kagame and the establishment that they need to uphold human rights and and send the message across. So when you look at these three trips, to me it seems that there's a new scramble for Africa, and this is not the last. Um, I expect also the Chinese to make a move very soon, and other countries to position themselves, either probably Britain, because the Russian war on Ukraine has shown the Western world that uh, Africa is slipping away from them, and now we're in a great power competition. So it is forcing these countries now to have to compete with China and Russia. And you must remember, even when Blinken was in Africa, he reiterated, oh sorry, even when he was in Africa, he enforced that they're going to follow through with the Fragility Act of 2019, which stated that the United States government will approach uh, less developed countries and in war torn, who are going through war torn civil war very differently, and they will try to use more soft power than military power. So when you look at this scramble, it's becoming a challenge to the Western countries, and that's why you see even the West have decided to to put forward their own Belt and Road initiative. It's called Build Back Better, to challenge Beijing Belt and Road initiative. Uh, I'm eager to see how it goes with this contest. I, I, I just hope the African countries will take advantage. See that right now they're on the spotlight. Everybody wants to engage with them and also take advantage and look for the best deal rather than to fall into the reveries of countries which probably do not care so much about them. They just care about the interest, because we must remember that all these countries are advancing their interests, looking for strategic partners. Their interests come first. So African countries must be wary, must be alert, and must understand that they they only work for their own citizen, not for these superpowers. Regardless of which side they choose or how they feel, or how their leaders feel, they must know that they act at the behest of of the people. But it's interesting that Macron came to Africa immediately, Lavrov came, and then Blinken came. It's like I find it, everyone is trying to go up and down just to look for allies. But we'll see where it goes, and I'll keep you guys informed. You can engage me in the comments, subscribe, like, and we'll talk again. Bye, friends.